Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another installment of the Sofa Series Artist Spotlight. Today with us, it's a twofer. We have Chetan and Melissa Tierra, both incredible pianists in the San Diego area. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yeah,
Hello. So get us started. Tell us a little bit about who you are, where are you from, how did you meet, and how'd you come to San Diego?
sure.
Oh
Would you
boy.
like to go
How did
ahead?
we meet? Well,
All the juicy
uh,
beats.
I'm originally from Texas,
Ooh,
uh,
what part?
northeast of Dallas, a small place that doesn't exist called Commerce.
I'm from a small place that doesn't exist called Mission on the at the very bottom,
There
way
you go.
bottom.
There you
Yeah.
go. Yeah, and so normal. Grew up in a small town, went to college, and then went to Europe actually and did an artist diploma, and then traveled to Cleveland to do my master's, and that's where I met this guy. We were studying with the same teacher, Antonio Pampabaldi. So,
Hey,
yeah.
match made in heaven.
Yes, yeah. So we studied with the same teacher, and from there, we actually started a rock band together and moved out to San Diego with the rest of the band. Someone from the band got a nice job out here. It's close to LA. Who wouldn't want to live out here, of course? So we
Right?
jumped on it, all moved out, and that's when we started teaching a little bit, performing in different styles of music besides just the classical piano we were used to.
Yeah.
And we've been here 10 years now.
Time
Yeah.
flies.
Yeah.
Yes.
I remember when we used to say, oh, we're the newbies, and people would show us around. Now we have to pay it forward.
Yeah, yeah. You get a lot of visitors, I'm sure. Everybody wants to come to San Diego and sleep on a couch and go to the beach all day, you know? So, like, is the rock band still together?
No.
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 Not really. It's something we left a couple of years ago, and just other business ventures were starting to take over.
Yeah.
So we went with them. That being said, we're not out of the popular medium. We're
Yeah.
still working with a drummer, possibly getting something going, but the projects we were in are no longer.
Oh, I see. I see. All right. So, well, what are you working on now? You've got both of you have a couple of recording projects coming out soon, which we'll share all of the release info to all of our people. But tell us a little bit about what you're working on.
But you have a wonderful concert coming up in
Yes.
October.
Well, I'm doing a concert in October, all living composers,
Great.
and just a lot of music that people don't really know. And so I put together the concert initially because I wanted to feature Chaitin's latest composition, which he played on this series, the first movement of the Hyperspace Sonata. So I was like, well, what can I put around it that would really accentuate it really well? So I went on a Google hunt to find like new piano pieces. And then it turned into this whole living composers thing. So out of all the composers on the program, I think the most one that people would be familiar with is Lowell Lieberman. But then the others are pretty, like Dobrinka Tabakova, are pretty abstract that, people don't really know so well. So I'm really excited to share music that people aren't as familiar with.
But you played Dobrinka's Motetudes, right?
Yes,
For
that's what I did for this.
so good. She's
Yeah.
so good. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
And it doesn't look like she's been writing much piano lately. It's all been, more instrumental choral stuff. So that was her work from 98.
Are you conceiving? Okay, so you've got a concert scheduled in October. Are you thinking of contingencies for like what if we're not allowed yet to have gatherings, and how are you considering the new limitations?
So I had thought about that. I hadn't really thought about it too much because October is far away. But I think if it gets to that, it'll probably turn into maybe I'll do a Facebook Live or I don't know.
But I think the
Come up with
goal is
something.
is to have a good concert DVD or
Yeah.
online video of it.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
will be released in several ways, and it will be an audio CD as well.
I see. Okay, cool.
So it's a whole thing. But the local show, who knows when?
Who knows? Who
Yeah.
knows? We're just waiting, waiting until.
We can touch people again. Right?
Yeah, touching. This is just doing a jab.
It's been pretty cool as she's been playing this music.
Yeah.
The idea of what modern music is has changed pretty dramatically, I feel like, in the last 25
Yeah.
years, potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think like in going through, all of my nerdy like music history from the 20th century, it's that the exponential change is incredible, right? It's super rapid. That everything is so available and so accessible, and that hasn't left the classical music world untouched too, right? So it's like we have all of the musics of everywhere available to us. What can we do,
Yeah.
and so like, a time period used to be a century, then it was maybe 50 years, and then it started encroaching 10 years. In the 20th century there was a movement for every decade, and now it's like, there's no such
So
thing.
you would know this better than I would for
Yeah.
sure. But how do you define those decades? And can you give us like a short-term history of that a little bit? Putting you to the test. This is
Well,
reverse
basically,
interview.
okay, the short of it is, it's just like people had little cliques, they hung out a lot, and then they named themselves, and then that was it.
Got it.
And that happened. Repeat up until now. So what are you working on, Chayton?
Sure.
You've got a project called Moon Shadows coming up.
Yes. Yeah. So during my time in those rock bands that we were doing, I was playing piano, and I was always looking for ways to put virtuosity into the instrument and just make the piano sound bigger for the band, but also more interesting than just kind of chord that you would hear. And so through that, I feel like I found a pretty fun style that I like to work in.
Yeah.
And it kind of geared itself towards rock and pop harmonies. And since the bands were no more a couple years ago, all that energy has been going into channeling that into solo piano compositions, which of course, when it's just the instrument by itself, there's so many more intricacies you can explore and diving deep into it. And I feel like I've really been finding my voice strongly the last couple of years. The Moon Shadows represent the first group of compositions that I made in that style. And each one was written like in the middle of the night. And they almost all came individually like that.
Yeah.
Like you'd be inspired. And oftentimes when you're inspired, you have to grab it and catch it and put it down and not think about it too much.
Shit, inspiration is like, it comes and goes.
Exactly. Yeah.
It goes more than it comes sometimes.
For sure. Yeah. So then these pieces, which were smaller in nature, kind of a little simpler, I would say, my students started going wild for them. And that was really encouraging. And audiences that weren't just classical purists were really embracing them, as well as my classical colleagues found the high art value in them as well. And so I'm kind of a new composer. I'm on I like to categorize my works in opuses.
Such a classical musician.
I know.
It's just it appeals to my organized OCD brain.
Great. You don't have to
but-
explain it to me.
Yeah.
I get it.
So I'm at Opus 9 now, and then I have a sketchbook that could take me through Opus 20. So
Talk about the sound. So you're saying you're finding like a voice in the piano that is uniquely yours, but I think that's hard for maybe some people to wrap their brain around. Like a piano is a piano is a piano. What the hell do you mean you can make it sound any different? Where do you
Yeah.
who do you think you are?
well, so when I say that, I don't necessarily mean that I'm doing anything terribly groundbreaking. But I think that the nature of music works that even if you're doing something that's there, much like Beethoven did classical music at first, your personality can't help but come through in it if the more you do it.
Right.
And then it kind of starts to morph into you and it. And so that's kind of what I mean. Like I found a style I'm comfortable working in where my personality can shine. That being said, it's rooted in minimalism, but I feel like minimalism is a bit of a dirty word sometimes.
Yeah.
and while I personally like it, I can also see why. It can almost be more of a philosophical experiment than pleasurable, because it can really drag on and on.
Literally.
And so while
Hours.
I take the repeated motives of minimalism, I definitely like to feel like I'll never let it get to too many repeated phrases in a row. I like to tell a story, change things up, and let it morph over time into what I see as kind of Schubertian in the way I come at it. Schubert repeats the heck out of his music, right?
Yeah, but it's never the same.
But it's never quite the same,
it's
right?
Never the same. Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds very different than Schubert, obviously, but I feel like the way he thought is similar to how I think.
Oh man, I could talk about Schubert forever. I've been living,
Well, he's a singer's dream, right?
Kinda.
Or nightmare, I guess.
Or nightmare. I mean, I feel like we are all given baby's first Schubert when we enter college, and I don't think not one of us gets it. We're like, okay, it's just this little German song. It's got a lot of words in it, and it repeats a lot. Yeah. But I'm coming back to it as a grown woman, and I'm just like, oh my God, youth is wasted on the young.
Oh
Shit.
Gosh. There's so many pieces like that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we're just I get it. I could actuate all the things. I made all the things on the page happen, but I did not get it at all. So what are you guys? How do you guys sort of deal with, first of all, you share a piano space? How do you have a schedule?
we actually got a second piano.
Yeah, there it is.
We got a practice room.
Yeah, so we have a practice room and then a piano in the living room. And the piano in our practice room, it's a Yamaha Avant Grand, which is, do you know
it? No, what does that even mean?
Believe it or not, it's a digital piano.
Oh, wow.
But it's
a grand piano.
It's a high-end digital.
Yeah.
I've prepared for concerts and competitions only on that thing.
No way.
The touch is so real and the sound is so wonderful that so one of us can use headphones and the other one can work out here.
Let it rip, yeah.
We can do that with our teaching too, actually, now that we're online.
Yeah, it's really fortunate we got the other piano, because now we have 2 teaching rooms given the current situation.
Yeah, I mean, how do you? As a teacher, I'm finding it difficult to really nurture healthy practice habits. How do you guys kind of go about that with your students? And because I think for piano, there's when you start, there's this little window where it's kids just can't really dive into it, which was my problem too. I could not sink my teeth into it at first, and so I walked away from it. But how do you all nurture the healthy practice life?
Oh, that's a toughie
one. So, well, I guess I feel like I am picky about some of the students I take now.
Uh-huh.
And one of the big things you learn through an instrument is personal discipline and self-discipline. And so if you just try and bypass that and trick them into, oh, it's all fun, then they're not really gaining the reality of it. So I like being pretty upfront over what it takes and pretty upfront over helping them build their practice schedule. And of course, there's not every week is going to be a good week of practice for sure. And some kids, if they don't want to do it, then, well, maybe they don't want to learn the instrument.
Yeah.
because anything that's worthwhile is hard. And anything that you love but also has hard, miserable moments.
Yeah.
I don't love to practice all the time, but we all love the results.
Right. That's I think what is really, really what was a game changer for me, even in my own singing practice, was this I just could not quite find the way to structure that time for myself, and it just felt like a chore. And then I don't know, there was something that kind of changed in it, the little minutia work, the really boring, tedious stuff, the wood shedding portion, just okay, well, what is the shape here? What is, the really itty bitty things, that became the interesting part for me.
Sure.
There was this weird change that happened, but I don't know. It's I think you're right. It's to make the point that it's not all super flashy and sexy all the time.
You gotta put in some work.
Yeah.
We also created, well, Chetan mainly wrote it, but
No, we've done it together.
We worked on it together, but a very detailed practicing course that we've been advertising all over the world. And it's just super organized on those like really efficient ways to like, well, if you're going to sit there and, spend all of that disciplined time, like you want to make sure you get something out of it. Right. So, and we take all of those same concepts and use those with our students here as well. So I think when people start seeing like, okay, I did that metronome work, I put in that time, it wasn't fun, but I got this result out of it. Okay, maybe I can do that again, and get the same thing out of it.
Some of it, I think, is the guesswork. If you're grinding and you're not clear on what it will achieve, then how that grind is miserable because that's filled with doubt and discouragement. But I when I teach my students to practice, I'll literally write out step 1, step 2, take the guesswork out of it, and the results are clear. So what I like to think when we teach is ultimately you want them to take this gift and train themselves the rest of their life.
Right.
So teaching them how to work, I see as possibly the most important thing to give them.
Yeah, because they don't have you in their ear 24/7, right?
Right.
Which that you could be, that would be great, but they have to be self-sufficient, You have to be able to self-diagnose and fix. Did you all ever have a moment in your own practice, in your own study, that you were like, God, what am I doing? I should just go and give it all up and go be a computer scientist.
Many times.
I think everyone, that's just the artistic process. And I don't know if it ever goes away. It kind of comes and goes. Just last week, I was preparing for some recording, and I was thinking about this literally. Sometimes when you're growing up conservatory, your teacher will give you a rough lesson and you'll question everything for a few days and then kind of find the light at the end of it. Well, in my own work, even without a teacher, I found myself digging deeper on that level. And then you listen back at your own playing and it's close, but it's like, that's not translating. And you go through those same discouragement times. That's just the artistic process. And I think without it, it doesn't allow you to dig as deep.
Well, what keeps you coming back? I mean, why not just walk away?
Perfectionism, probably. Yeah. Such a perfectionist.
I think
I'm gonna fix it.
So what is the love of it? Well, when you've created it and you get to share it, I mean, it's there's nothing like it. You feel that energy from an audience while you're on stage. There's nothing like it. Absolutely nothing. And to create, there's a duty aspect to it, and you're compelled. There's nothing else you could do, so it becomes a purpose.
What were like the pieces, the maybe there's like a monolithic piece that was like your hook that really sunk its teeth into you and you were like, all right, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. Is there such a romantic relationship?
I actually had a piece like that. And the funny thing is, I never played that piece. And I still have never played that piece. It's the Brahms, the A major, what is it, from Opus 118 Intermezzo? That is the right, So yes. I've literally never played it, but every time, I remember it was this one year in college, every time everyone came and performed it for some reason. And every time I heard it, I would just get so emotional and want to cry. And I'm like, oh, that's why I'm doing this again. That's why I'm doing this. And that's funny because I've never performed the piece.
You should know the name of the piece. That's your favorite.
Oh, shit!
It's actually my favorite piece.
I just threw you under the bus.
One of the turning points, right? Where you're like, that's why.
That's shady, Chetan.
There's so many, right?
Yeah.
I think at different times, Rachmaninoff's Second Piano Concerto, probably, classic.
Yeah.
And that's just one that grabs you from a very early age, I think. And then as you dig deeper, some Prokofiev, Beethoven always has his moment. As pianist, Chopin always has his moment in your life.
Yeah.
And as you're growing, there's always that next piece that's like, I want to get to that level. And so I think it stacks upon itself.
Do you find that there's like a little carrot piece for you right now, even as like accomplished, incredibly gifted, skilled pianists? Are there still things that you were working towards?
In terms of technique, not to level up abilities at this point, but in terms of passion projects, being out of conservatory where you had to have a perfectly balanced, well-rounded repertoire, always the next hardest thing. Now you can dive all in on one composer for a year and do a CD. So Schubert, actually, to come back to him, is one I'm working on now particularly. And I didn't appreciate him as much back then, but he's so pure and there's a perfection to his music that I just adore.
Yeah. Let's always just come back to Schubert.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just recorded some of it yesterday for another concert series, and I'm just like, oh my God, yeah. I need to do this. I need to do like all of the song cycles and just do like a 3-hour concert, just sing it all, play it all.
Yeah, and then just find a different way to showcase it. Like, yeah.
I wonder if there's a way, well, it wouldn't work for Project Blank, would it? But I guess if you got repurposed it somehow, but who knows?
No, we're not anti the oldies at Project Blank. It doesn't always have to be in your face. This is new, these musics, they're not islands, right? Like
sure.
the Barrios and the Boulezes and the Messiaens exist because of Schubert, because of Bach, because of Hildegard von Bingen. These I don't know. I believe that they all still are in communication with each other, and nothing is removed from its past and from that history.
Sure.
Ever. You exist because of Schubert and Bach and Hildegard, which is, I think, beautiful. So there's lots of lines that you can draw between all of these things that are like these monoliths, right? It feels a little like, I don't know, I think maybe some people feel it's sacrilegious to put it's something that is old with something that is new, and it's just like, oh, I don't know, they don't agree with each other. It's like, but they do.
Yeah,
they
right.
have to.
Yeah.
Oh
Definitely.
man. So, apart from your concerts coming up, is there in the next, when are you releasing this Schubert record? Let's get a date on record.
Sure. So first is an all WC record that I recorded.
What?
Last year. Sorry.
Yeah, that's what he said.
So that's what's coming up.
By the way,
there's no release date as of now. The quarantine, kind of threw things around. So I need to figure out how I want to release it, and then go from there. But Schubert's probably next year.
Yeah. Are you guys thinking of nurturing any new pop projects?
Well, maybe.
So the piece that you heard there, a drummer got inspired by it and put drums to the whole thing.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
And it's pretty cool. And
awesome.
I'm sitting with it, trying to see where it is, but we might expand that piece into something bigger.
Oh, rad! That would be amazing.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, no vocals, but instrumental.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, that's great. And anything for you, Melissa?
Well, I'm curating several paintings in my garage right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I did that painting for.
She painted this that you see right
behind us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
sort
great.
of my what used to be a hobby in undergrad to just relieve stress has turned into kind of its own thing now, which has its own style, and I don't know, I kind of found my place in the groove with it a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Last year he did a concert in Santa Cruz, and for his Moon Shadows, he played several of the pieces, and I painted these little 12 by 12 pictures that fit the mood of those different movements. And then what we did is we passed them around in the audience and let people hold them while he played. And that was really interesting to watch, like sitting in the back. Just some people would hold one for just the longest time and turn it around and around and around. And so, I don't know, I thought that was a different way to experience new music you had never heard before. Just put a visceral aspect to it.
I think that absolutely helps. You know, even as like musics are not separate from each other historically, all of the arts are completely interwoven. They're not separate at all, right? And
Yeah.
so any sort of visual component with sound, you can put in even smells. You can put it, you can create a whole different listening experience by activating other senses, which I think is really compelling. Would you ever do like a live painting to a live performance?
I'm sure I would
I
at
think
some
we've talked
point.
about
Yeah,
it for sure.
it's just trying to figure out how to do it in a non-messy sense. Because like when I paint, it's well, if you watch the video,
Yeah.
so we have to find a way to do that. But yeah,
I'm sure there are spaces that would be into it.
like here, you're allowed to paint my floor.
Yeah, exactly. Get it
We're cool with
everywhere. Just put a tarp.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's fine. It's water soluble, right?
Technically, it's acrylic.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me. I know you guys have to run.
Yes, thank you for having us.
I
Thank
love
you.
talking with you, and please do keep us posted on any release dates for any of your upcoming projects, and we'll be sure to spread the word for you.
Of course,
Thank you.
and thank you for what you do. It's a wonderful series that we're happy to support, and I hope everyone continues to.
Yes.
Thank you so much. All right.
Bye.
Bye.